But the question was, how should the woman of the world celebrate herself today? And what should be done, if at all?
I think actually that one of the main ways women can celebrate is by showing by example. It's really the best thing that we can do. Try to live free of inhibitions, not to restrict ourselves. So the more times that we face any inhibition or that we move forward and try something and test these boundaries, then the more confidence we're going to get. And the more confidence we get, the more likely we are to push ourselves that little bit further. But certainly living by example is quite important. And also education. So supporting those that are not quite as confident as ourselves, or who are restricted because of where they are. There might be a cultural restriction or there might be a personal restriction, but to help those that don't have quite that same level of ability as we might have, or experience as we might have. Also to educate those that actually don't understand equality. And gender, as an equality, is quite common, is known, but it's not a privilege. It is a fact, but it should not be a privilege. The biggest problem today is with equality for women is that it doesn't mean the same for everyone, but it should actually mean understanding the difference. And so when you look at race as well as gender, these two actually have quite strong parallels. You'll see the misunderstanding with gender runs in line with misunderstanding of race. So again, it's by living by example is what's really, really critical. And I think that International Women's Day gives us the opportunity to value women's role in society, past, present, and also moving forward. If we look back, not so long ago, you'll see that in the early 1960s, there started to be quite some considerable changes with gender equality. The first elected female leader was in Sri Lanka in 1960, and she set the trend then. Since 1960, there have been 90 elected female leaders, and currently today, there are 21 women who are head of state or head of government in 193 countries. That's 11%, but there is still quite a long way to go. When we look at the boardroom in business, overall, women hold approximately 12% of board positions worldwide, but there are only 4% of them that actually chair the boards. Denmark, that's the sixth highest number in the world of women on its boards, but not a single one of them is a chair of the company. So that's from a Deloitte study, a recent Deloitte study. So it's not just Denmark, it's not just your own country that has these problems. This is an international issue. Women now hold a third of the board positions in the UK, so that is going up. But women continue to face barriers for their success, whether it's through promotion or key roles or how they're treated by colleagues. There are these barriers, and we have to learn to face those and try to educate to allow us to be able to move forward. When people think about astronauts, they often think about male astronauts. 90% of them are male, but 10% of them have been female. And as of this month, there have been 65 women who have flown into space. And that's quite remarkable. Cosmonauts, astronauts, payload specialists, or even the space station participants. And the very first woman into space was actually a Russian in 1963. But how often do we tell our children about the women in space? We often talk about Neil Armstrong having landed on the moon and the first man to walk on the moon. But we don't really sing our praises or do a gender balance when we talk about these things. Now, looking at it from my own personal experience, how have I managed to celebrate being a woman, and how have I managed to use this? I think one of the key things is I actually value being a mother. And this is something that only women can do, obviously. I'm a very proud mother of 2 wonderful daughters, but I've also taken in to care some children. When we first established our biotechnology company, I needed to go into town to sign some contracts for a massive investment that was going to take place. And at that time, I had a 3-year-old little boy in my care, and I brought him with me. The look of shock and horror on the all male participants in that meeting was unbelievable. And they sent a secretary out to go and buy some biscuits for this little boy. And at the end of the meeting, which was about an hour long, they then realised that being a mother was not such a bad thing. And okay, I was very lucky. This little boy was a very well-behaved little boy. But it just showed that it doesn't have to be that being a mother has to stay at home and can't participate in big contracts or business deals. Again, when we at the business school, we have put out to try and balance our gender in the business school for professors and for teaching. We don't get many female applicants. I suppose possibly there are not that many people, females, who are interested in teaching in business. We see that in the number of students who apply for the business courses. There are more males than females. But what I do notice in the applications is that the males are very bombastic, they're very forward, and the females don't really present themselves as aggressively as the males do. They're quite quiet about their achievements. So again, live by example. Please broadcast what we do. My eldest daughter works for the UNHCR, and I was very privileged to be invited to Lebanon to support her in some teaching that she was doing in the Bekaa Valley. And this again, a cultural difference from the West to the Middle East. We were teaching a group of children who were very, very happy to have class. And one of the girls was pulled out of class because her family said, "You don't need an education. You're going to be brought home to clean the house. That is your place." Again, education. It starts at very, very early years. And girls in the Bekaa Valley, certainly the refugee camps, would have less chance of an education than the boys would. I'm a member of the European University Alliance. And again, on that board, we are mainly women, which is quite interesting, as is my job in the international offices of the university. Most of the people running international offices around the world are actually females. But with my other hat, I have my own biotechnology company, and that's male dominated. And yet there's some very good female scientists. So it's quite interesting to see how there does seem to be this break up of the 2 different genders. In the business school, I'm on what they call, in English it would be something like the board of management for the business school, and I'm the only female amongst 12 men. So that's one side to look at. The other side is to look at the government's perspective on women as a role. And generally, women, if they're lucky to get any maternity leave at all, get very limited maternity leave. There are exceptions. But likewise, fathers get very little paternity leave. And the US is the only country in the world, other than Papua New Guinea, that has no national policy guaranteeing leave for new mothers. How can this be? How can women possibly have a chance to develop their careers further if they're not given the support to also be mothers? And I very strongly support mothers getting into the workplace and catching up with their counterparts in a career. You should not be in any way held back because of taking time out to give birth to children. My youngest daughter is in exactly that situation now. She's looking at her life ahead of her, and of course the biological clock is ticking. But if she were to decide to start a family now, it would set her career back by a couple of years, because there's no facility for her to be able to take time out to have a family. And it's a very valuable resource, having a family. So how should we celebrate, and what can be done? I think we should celebrate by education. We should teach those who are ignorant. We should support those that don't have much confidence. And most of all, don't let others hold you back. Represent yourself well lead by example. That also applies to the men as well. So don't hold back. Be happy in whatever you do. Don't be afraid to ask for support. It's not a weakness. I can only do what I do because I have the support of so many different teams of people, my family being first. You can be as good as anybody else, regardless of your gender. Don't let gender be the thing that holds you back.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Michelle. Very strong points there. And I think they're the points that people might know, but might wonder on how to implement those. For example, living by example into the community. Let's say you're a mother, or of course you spoke about the father as well. We are celebrating the women here, but that was a very good point, because we are not trying to create a world where women are coming up quickly and then after several years then we start to work on the men to come up again. But we're trying to celebrate the world where men and women will work together to create the better place to live. So how can a person, let's say a woman of the world, as we call, show an example to the young daughter at home that this is the way to move forward?
I think key is education. So from the very beginning, you live by example. But the other thing when you talk to your daughter and your sons is what job would you like to go into? Or who's going to help me prepare the food? Or whose turn is it to empty the dishwasher? Is that you don't delineate on gender. Now there are certain things that the boys are better at than the girls. One good example would be, generally speaking, the boys in my family unit are much stronger than the girls. So it's only right that they should help with the physical activities. There's nothing weak about not having the strength to carry a heavy box or to help carry the more heavy items in the shopping. There's nothing to do with gender there. It's just a physical fact that some people, the strongest person, should carry the heavier item. So when it comes to educating the daughters, it's to not let their gender hold them back. Even in a male-dominated situation, which could be a business role, trying to aim for the board, go for it. Give them all the encouragement, empower them, educate them, lead by example. And I would say that is absolutely key for the young girls today, and the boys, because the boys should also see that there should be no difference.
Yes,
and
definitely.
I strongly believe, with having had a wonderful opportunity to have a couple of children, which is probably the most important thing in my life, is an equal share. My husband also has responsibilities there, and the children see that. They should see that.
That's right.
Certain things that mummy's better at than doing than daddy is. Don't think it's really good at sewing buttons on shirts, but you can still learn.
Exactly.
But I'm not very good at fixing the car. It's not a gender issue. That is purely, I don't have much interest in getting my hands oily, and I don't have much interest in car engines, and he genuinely does.
Definitely.
This is the thing. We always categorise people by gender and activities by gender, and that's got to sort of be undone. And we should try and promote some of these wonderful female leaders we've got, or females in high positions, in board positions, to show they are also well able to multitask or to do the same as men many times. It's not about the gender, it's about your own personal ability. And quite often, to be able to give yourself 100% to a task, you do need support, male or female. They actually say behind every great man is his wife or a woman. You know, the reverse is also true. I would not be where I am today if I didn't have a very understanding husband.
Definitely. Fair enough. Great. Fantastic.